Good afternoon to you all. We are the last heroes standing who are staying on during the last session of these 2 interesting days that we have had here. We will now hear the moderators concluding the discussions that they have been moderating. And after that, we will leave some time, but not very much time, for questions. And although we are starting now some 10 minutes late from the schedule, we will stop this discussion at 4 o'clock, as is what it was said in the timetable. So now we are going to listen to the moderators from the previous discussions. And first out is Elina. Пожалуйста.
I'm very lucky, I think, among other moderators. As you remember, if you were present during the session, I was moderating the panel discussion. I think that, but I can tell you about my impressions. Maybe not regarding to the discussion which was held yesterday, but regarding the conference. I would like to thank the Foundation Cultura and everybody participating in this event. Of course, we didn't succeed completely because some of our possible participants could not come from other countries of Europe. But I think that this conference can be the traditional conference, thinking and discussing about the European Russians, because the questions of identity are very important for us. And the questions of integration into the European community, not regarding the political questions, are very important for our children, first of all. And I think that we felt it when we were listening to Liisa Tuhkanen, to her presentation. And I think that we can obtain more research works in future, and we can think who we are, why are we doing or acting in this way or that. I think that maybe in the interaction and maybe in the framework of the discussion, we can speak about these questions more. So, Levan, you are the next. I am very glad to participate in this conference. I'm admiring our audience and the panel discussion, Deutsche Welle, BBC, NTV Plus from the European Union, and of course it was a very strong team speaking about the audience. Deutsche Welle do not aim at the Russian-speaking community in Germany, it was mentioned, but I think it affects it. And as Elena told us, of course, we feel that this conference is a big step towards the cooperation between the Russian-speaking media on the territory of Europe. And Daria Sar mentioned this question also because we cannot separate ourselves from the international media. And this conference can be the first step on the road towards this close cooperation and the implementation of this cooperation. And I think that this is the most valuable part and result of this conference. regarding the Russian-speaking media abroad.
Yes, I moderated yesterday a group. We were talking about social media and its use and impacts of it in a different Russian-speaking communities. And in that session and in the other sessions too, we are trying to answer questions. We live in time with lots of questions. Things around us move, and people move around. We have whole new questions and whole new things. How we make things happen, like social media, and we are just trying to simply figure out what is happening around us, what is happening to us, what are people trying to make happening, and this is kind of. It's not just Russian-speaking people, but in a way Russian-speaking people around Europe are in the core of this huge hurricane of question marks. And I think we just started something important here.
Everyone seems to agree that something important has started. Are you of the same position, Marco?
Yes, I think that our starting panel was, we had a great 3 presentations. Eikö kuulu mitään? Pitäisikö laittaa virrat päälle? Miten se laitetaan?
Mitenhän?
Täällä on onneksi tekninen asiantuntija. No niin, joku joka ymmärtää näistä. Hyvä. Yes, we had a really interesting panel in the beginning and 3 good presentation covering 3 different countries, comparing Russian minorities in Tehran and discussing about, or inevitably it came up that there are differences but very many similarities as well in adaptation, integration of Russians and an attitude of the native population towards Russian minority, Russian-speaking minorities, and exactly that also that Russian-speaking minorities, they are not one big ball or only that we can only speak about Russian-speaking minority. Rather, we should speak about different kind of minorities and different kind of identities which are structured also like an onion, like for all people. But what came to my mind after this panel actually, and during this panel, is that although we need really to understand these developments and what is going on, we need comparative research not only between different countries where Russian minorities, Russian-speaking minorities are living, but also comparative research on this time space. If we think about, and not only about Russian minorities, it came inevitably to my mind to compare the position and attitudes of Russian minorities to Finnish minorities, Finnish immigrants in Sweden, in North America. And I can find so much similarities in their behavior and how they are used. To put it very brutally, simple way, I can say that in Sweden they were really suspicious during the 60s, 1960s and 70s and even in 1980s. What is the influence of Russian communists during these Finnish immigrants in Sweden and their trade union activities and party activities, what they conducted? Because Finns were an important part of Swedish political radical left movement. And the same holds true in the Northern American Finnish immigration. Not only these red Finns, but also white Finns. And they were so deeply divided that they don't even nowadays discuss with each other. So we have to take a little bit longer and broader perspective to put also this topical question today, yesterday, last year on its right place and into some context. And this is the somehow the methodological approach what I started to think, and I think that this has been a good beginning of this to try to understand these processes and to go forward on this track as well. So I think that this was the main thing. It's impossible to make conclusion of all these three good presentations which our guests have given here.
And then Katja.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I also see this conference being a great platform to discuss all these ideas in an abstract level and in a very concrete level. And what our workshop did, I think it takes these discussions on media as a cohesion or as a power to build the community towards more concrete level, to the level of individual people and their strategies in media use and the importance of media in their life and so on. I think that these 2 days have shown how important it is to discuss all these different sides of the role of media and about the place of diasporas in different countries and what's the contribution of media and how the people who are moving to other country, how do they also create their own media space. And one interesting aspect that we also touched upon this workshop was this conflicting media scapes, as we heard from Tohmajärvi example from eastern Finland, is that the reality people are seeing in the local level, it doesn't necessarily portray the picture they got from media. And this same was also shown yesterday in a bigger picture regarding the picture, for example, about Ukrainian situation and so on. So we see same phenomena in national and local level, and so there are a lot of comparisons possible. As Mark also said, it's very important to study these different aspects, and I think that we heard very interesting presentations around these things today.
Okay, we will continue the discussion. Allow me to tell you one small story which can illustrate how people are dependent on what they are able to see or hear through media and in real life. This goes back 2 years, no, 1 year, but a little more than 1 year. I was in a bomb shelter in Donetsk. And as you understand, people sitting in bombing shelters, they don't see what is happening outside. They are sitting there, they are in a terrible condition, and they are very afraid of things. And there was an old lady who came up to me, and she was very angry. And she told me that we don't want to live under Nazi people in Kiev, and they are carrying around pictures of Hitler and Goebbels in the street of Kiev. At that time, I lived in Kiev. So I told her that, I live there and I haven't seen these pictures. And she looked at me very, very angry or yes, you can say angry. And she said, you should watch television a bit more thoroughly. Mm. So this is, you can get your experience of what is happening in so many ways. This as a continuing to Katja. But as I had the feeling that everyone agreed with the idea that this is a beginning of something, I would like you all 5 to tell me, or to tell the people who arranged this seminar, how would you like to go on? If this is the beginning, what would you like to see next? And we will begin with Katja now and go that way.
Yeah. So I see this conference forum where we had the possibility to listen academians, the presenters from academia, and then we had people from actually the media who were presenting from different countries and so on. So we had quite variety of people coming from different places, giving the platform basically for all these different parties. I think this is a very good form of creating discussion. And of course, this is the start for discussion, and I would be very glad to see some kind of continuation to this kind of seminar next year also. Of course, the forms of that might change, but still I see this quite working well this time.
Yeah, I can agree this, and as I mentioned already, I would continue this towards to broader comparison, comparative perspective, to take in also not only Russian minorities or migration, but some other nations. And I'm quite sure, based on the research of the immigration, migration, that we can find out more common features than these unique features of the. So we can, after that, separate somehow and analyze more deeply what is unique and what is universal feature in this way. And the second question is that I think that academically and also practically it would be really interesting and important also to take into question and observe the question that not only how is going this integration of Russian-speaking minorities in each of countries, but the second or other part of this, the whole picture is what is the attitude of the main population, the host country's population and media space, and do we find the differences or similarities between them and so forth, because it's a very clear thing that it's a two-side process to the whole integration and to building up a new type of modern society and identities. And we have different countries and different experiences, different places.
I'm very glad that there are people here from different fields of life. What I would like to see more here are politicians, but they are busy people, and they don't have time today to sit down 2 days for just one thing. I understand that too, but maybe they should have the time. The continuity would be, I think, if we want to continue the process, we must have some kind of vision where we go, and I think that vision is somehow built on transnational identities, transnational media, multicultural societies, what we live in today, and it's in a way the whole change that is happening in us, which also includes the way we are building our identities up with the media and so on. So I think in a way we are trying to hunt down this new kind of globalized world where people are going around and trying to find themselves suitable lives for themselves, no matter what are the countries and things now. But I think in a way that's the big picture, but of course if we want to have a good conversation we need to focus on something, and I think Russian-speaking people in Europe is kind of a good, very good topic there, because there are lots of like these old historical things inside that, but also the things we are trying to figure out what is happening around us, like security crisis in Europe and so on. So, and of course, I would like to think that it's not just like conferences 2 days in a year, but how could we make this conversation to go on between these real life happenings. Maybe, of course, we must use the virtual world. We can use things there, and so we can quite easily to maybe try to get some kind of group there, which is just sharing information, sharing views, and it's kind of process going on. We had, when our research group was yesterday, we were telling what we did. Actually, we have this kind of Facebook group, which we're having links and all kinds of little things there. We have just kind of information flow in front of us, which help us to go somewhere. And that kind of flow would be good to make also around this thing.
Если говорить исключительно о...
If we are talking about media, I would like to see during the next meeting more practical activities. For example, with MTV Plus Estonian channel decided to make our common TV program, and we are discussing this through social media, through Skype, but of course we have to meet face to face. And for example, if the conference will be held during 2 days, on the second day, Yle, BBC, Deutsche Welle representatives can sit together and we can organize some kind of brainstorm and discover what kind of activities can suggest us each of them. So I think it will be necessary for the next meeting. Yes, of course, Markku would like to arrange a very big global project. Of course, it is interesting and everything is good, nothing bad, but of course it is very important for the academic research. But I am representing the Russian speakers, and I think that we were postponing the research of Russian-speaking people in Finland too long. And of course now we have a very important research works at the moment. For example, the Institute of Migration has prepared one of them, and it is explained also why this question was postponed so long. And this interest is existing now towards these problems and towards this current situation, which is equal, I think, on the territory of Europe. And that's why we have to concentrate our attention. And maybe it is not very important to compare the position of Finns in Sweden to the current situation with Russian speakers in Finland nowadays. Maybe this comparison maybe does not help us to enhance the process of integration. I think that it is very important that Russian speakers will be the equal part of the Finnish society, and the Finnish population will not see any threats regarding the Russian speakers. And the attitude towards them would not be as the attitude towards the others. I think that maybe we have some peculiarities in the different countries in the EU. I think that Russian speakers can be 4 or 6 million people. I do not remember the figures now, which were mentioned during presentations, but in any case, this is a great amount. And maybe a few years ago, we felt that Latvia or Estonia will make questions and put this question into European Union agenda. But I think that in Finland we do not have this kind of tension as it is felt in Latvia or Estonia. Maybe Finland will be the right country to make this initiative.
It's quite different from Latvia and Estonia concerning the Russians living there. Now we have a lot of time for questions, so I even can allow you to come with short, I underline short comments. So please.
If Chairperson allow, I can answer to Elina about shortly. I don't see that it's only practical question. I don't put these questions to comparison and to concentration on Russian speakers in Finland and the research and focus on them, that they are contradictory questions. They are not. But the whole thing is that if you take these Russian speakers in Finland and start to focus them, very soon you start to repeat the story, narration, what is already prevailing on the media, that they are so tricky, special, and different than all the others. And after that you lose the whole picture. You start to speak this special case, and don't understand and to see the bigger picture. I'm not promoting now the big global project, but I'm approaching the whole question and issue according to academic standards, research standards, how research is usually done in social sciences, that there is almost always, if it's good research, there is comparison. And it don't mean that we lose this Finnish case. No, not at all. And this was also to my comment on how we should progress and go forward. I'm really happy that we have now this research which is going on already here, and it's really needed. I don't say that it's not.
У меня маленькое уточнение. А откуда у Марку такая уверенность, что мы все плохие?
And of course, there's also a little addition, and a little addition about how all of us are bad and so on and so forth. Does it mean that you already know how the research is going to be conducted, or how do you look at these things? For example, Russian speakers in Finland and the research that was prepared by the UNSU team. So those are not evaluative, assessive, they're not analytical, they're not describing structural problems and stuff like that. So, but in my estimation, if we're constantly worried about researching Russian speakers and imagining that they're different from the other population, that is not correct either. That is not right. So basically what I'm driving at is that there are different and specific topics that we have been discussing, and Russian speakers in Europe is it. And so, and the Russian-speaking communities. And this is the kind of topic that has to be discussed and decided together by all of us. And in order for our children who grow abroad, for our children to have different alternatives for self-identification, so that they were not pressured by social pressures, and when so that they're not forced to take sides, so that they can be actually not having these problems and misunderstandings that we have been talking about. Давайте сейчас из аудитории возьмем вопросы, но, по крайней мере, я знаю, что вот сейчас у нас панелисты хотят еще высказаться, и предлагаю вот дать им кратенько слово, а потом взять вопросы. И вот я вижу, что проблема...
And that is reflecting on Russian-speaking people too. And so it's, I think it will not, this crisis we are living in now, it's not going to end soon, but it's going to end anyway. And I think it's somehow I'm trying to make every day myself clear that there are certain things that state is doing, and then there are people, and there is culture, and so on. And I really try to keep these separate, that when I'm criticizing Russia, I'm not criticizing Russian or Russian-speaking people. So I really want to keep these things on. They are different things. So if you mix them, then we are in deep trouble, in my mind.
Okay, it's your turn. Who would want to be the first one?
Hello again. My name is Dmitry Yagodin from University of Tampere. I don't hear anything. I think it's on. Oh, I should hope. Okay. Is it better now? Yes. I wanted to thank, of course, all the organizers for this beautiful event, and I wanted to express my happiness as an academic to be able to work not just with other academics, because this is what we usually have in our work. We meet with academics and we discuss this kind of problems with the audience who understands our language. And here, the beauty of this format is that we can speak different languages, languages of the journalists whom we study, languages of those minority communities whom we study, and I think this is the most advantageous effect of this forum. And if I want to reflect on some possible future projects or future directions of our work, it's not, I don't think that we should aim for a final solution of a problem. What we have here is a recognition of the problem, and what we can do, each of us, by doing small steps in working in our fields, is also to understand that there are different communities, academic community, media community, and cultural groups that need to work closer together in order to produce better results in science, in journalism, and in cultural work.
You go without a question, only the comment. Yes. Okay. And who wants to be next? We don't have any questions. That's quite interesting. Oh yes, one more.
It's not a question, comment as well. My name is Pirjo Pöllänen, researcher from the University of Eastern Finland. I highly appreciate all the speakers, but I want to support the idea Professor Markku Kangaspuro was producing here about doing this kind of comparative research among different migration waves. I'm looking this of course from the perspective of someone who has been studying migration and, well, especially Russian migrants, but I would see this kind of comparison very important from the academical perspectives, but also for the communal and administrative purposes. This kind we could get a very important information for the politicians and the decision makers as well. For example, the Somali migration or the Somali diaspora to Finland started same time than this Russian diaspora at the beginning of 90s. And we don't have comparative studies for these phenomena at all. And I would like to add that it would be interesting in social sciences and in humanities especially, or it would be highly important to have other kind of comparative studies than quantitative studies. We could do more about qualitative comparisons and comparison of discourses and this kind of study. So just to supporting your idea.
Now we have Olga.
I would like to also thank the organizers of the conference, because I think that this common effort in creating this entire forum and also inviting the people to speak here and organizing the event in general, that was brilliant. So thank you very much to everybody. And to continue the topic of comparative studies, of course, I agree that comparative studies are necessary, and we also need to study other minorities and communities. We also think that Russian-speaking communities has to be researched in different countries, because our integration, if we use that terminology of where we are, who we are, and why we are, is very important. And we know that there are big Russian minorities in Israel, Germany, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Those are informational minorities, and I think that the more comparative studies we do, the better we can understand where we're going. And as far as the comparative studies go, I also would like to say that different migrant communities would be very interesting to compare, and especially their relations with media in the Turkish and the Russian-speaking communities in Germany, for example, because when we compare things, we learn more. And of course, it's built into the research activities, and if we just know that it has to be done this way, then it will never be researched and never be compared. So we have to also understand who and with which we have to compare. But that's another thing. And I also would like to ask one question from all the panelists. Yesterday and today we heard different presentations, and I think one of the most shocking ones was Jessica Arrow's presentation about this persecution campaign. And I think that we can speak about transnational world in a beautiful way, global movements, globalization, and this is all fine, but it's one of the areas of sides of the transnational process. But we also have some other sides to it, like she uncovered, and I know that the Finnish society and all the other European societies are considering the questions of arranging the media space and the rules and what kind of hygiene, so to speak, has to be in this digital space, how it has to be created so that we don't have outrageous questions and situations like we heard about today. So do you have any recipes of how we can do that? I know it's a very simple question.
Ливан так радостно смеется или грустно?
Я очень грустно смеюсь, на самом деле. Даже не знаю, что ответить.
To be honest with you, I think we're stunned by the question. We don't know what the answer. To tell you the truth, we were discussing during the coffee break between the two of us just the definition of media is influenced a lot right now by different factors. Before, in the previous times at least, we had some kind of minimal norms, ethical norms that existed in journalism. Right now, if you look at it globally, the bar is lowered so much below the waterline, so to speak, that the definition of media and the media source is already understood differently in different countries. And I think that is one of the biggest problems right now. How do we solve this, and how do we raise the bar? How do we at least bring the bar to the medium standard level? That's a problem. I don't know. I think that our annual forum of Finnish journalists discuss questions, similar questions like that, and I have to say that I mean the journalists, we have pretty much relaxed at some point, and we allowed to consider journalism everything that is floating in the media space. And what we have heard yesterday and today has to do with the journalism itself and how to preserve journalism per se. And the more solidarity and togetherness that we display, and the more precise our target is, and of course the researchers that all the researchers really have to help in this situation. I agree with the researchers that were talking today. Focused research is very important. So our researchers cannot and should not put everything into the same basket and say this is all media. There are different criteria that presuppose also responsibility, and it's very important to leave journalism as journalism and keep it that way so we don't mix apples and oranges, and there's no mixture of society and politics, and we cannot close our eyes to the problem and pretend that nothing is happening. For example, in Jessica's case, I'm glad that there's a case created and it's being investigated, and we understand that, of course, this situation will not be left as is, and that's good.
Never forgets anything it learns. War and violence get new ways of doing their things during the history, technological arms and guns and everything like that. And information is now a weapon. And we can't get rid of that. That's my pessimistic/realistic view. We are stuck with it. We are stuck with this hate speech. We are stuck with information influencing. What we can do is it's not like it's there, we must just raise our hands, okay, it's there. Of course we have to fight back, and we must fight back as be the change we want in a Gandhi way, that we must do ourselves be better persons. We must try to get the bar up in conversations. And the other thing is also that what Jessica did today for many of you, she opened your eyes. That's one thing. I've been educating different kind of organizations about information influencing, hate speech and so on. And usually it comes when something is happening, they just want, oh, what is this? And then when you tell, okay, there are these structures, this is what they want, this is the way they use, it helps. It doesn't go away, but it helps when you understand what is happening there. And well, it helps me personally too, because I've been having my share too of different kind of hate speech and so on. But that is what we should do. We should, and we also must point out that, okay, this is wrong. It's not going to go away, but we still should show where what is right and what is wrong, and understand what is happening. That's my medicine for this.
Because I already introduced myself, so I'm not going to do it again to save time. I agree with everybody who thank the organizers. I would like to do the same on my behalf. I would like to say a big thank you again. It was a great event. It was very useful. I can't say that I agree with everything, and I know that everybody feels the same way here, but I have a request, because in my estimation and in my experience and the digital activity that we have in every state, most of the people trust their media resources and their press, and I actually tried, and I would like to raise the question. I tried to do it many times already, haven't achieved anything yet, so I would like for events like that to invite the Finnish press, for example, because unfortunately we don't have we can't do anything good to help Finnish people to find out about Russian-speaking Russian immigrants, not be afraid of them, accept them, support them, and so on, if the Finnish press continues to print negative articles. For example, we receive letters, anonymous letters in our organization where Finnish citizens cut out from newspapers negative articles that are printed in the Finnish press, and they sent them to us. They were very unpleasant things from Helsinki and Satama and all the known Finnish papers. So I would like to invite Finnish journalists to these meetings so that they can understand the problems and hear the Russian-speaking media, and maybe they can actually use their media sources to highlight these problems. And we understand that people don't always abide by the law in Finland as well, but that's unfortunate, but that doesn't mean that it's the situation as is. That doesn't mean that all the immigrants are so negative and so bad. I think in one of the presentations, I think it was from Germany, that they talked about people doing drugs and ending up in prison and stuff like that. Of course, we have problems with drug use and other things, but I know that most people, Russian young immigrants, would like to get employed and apply their abilities, but they're rejected, and they come across situations where they receive 1, 2, 3 negative experiences, and that is very isolating and marginalizing. They speak very good Finnish. They went to a Finnish school, as they have a profession, but they are treated as second-rate citizens. And this is the matter for the Finnish press to understand and help, is that they're Finnish citizens just like them, to maybe discuss and do something in this respect. We understand global politics, but there is also something specific besides geopolitics, because it's a big problem in each particular country, because the more you reject people, the more problems with drug use and prison terms you will have. And unfortunately, we can't do everything without the help, without unifying our efforts and without putting our heads together. So once again, I would like to say that the Finnish press has to be present at these meetings and forums, and they can help to start forming and building the bridge. You can call it anything you want, but I think that the Finnish side really has to be present here to make the society international and national and more homogeneous. Thank you.
Мне здесь кажется очень важным, что
I think that it's very important here that there's been a lot of talk about initiatives that have to do with cooperation of Russian-speaking press and Russian-speaking public organizations that are located in the European countries, and cooperation of those between themselves. Right now, this cooperation goes through Moscow, through the Congress of Counterparts. At the same time, during the 20th century, the Russian diaspora and Russian communities have had a lot of different examples and a positive experience of how much Russian-speaking people from Tallinn to maybe Paris and farther can find a common language, so to speak, in terms of the cultural initiatives and common work. I think it's very important that in the European Union, both at public authorities and local people and grassroots and media people, we have an understanding and awareness of the fact that these 6 million people are not going anywhere. They will speak the language of the country where they live, and at the same time they speak another language, and what can we do about this situation, and how can we use the limited resources that we have and not spread it thin, but try to build cooperative and cooperation networks, and use the budgets to support these initiatives and cultures and in culture and education, and to use this common effect and building cooperation and capacity between them form this Russian-speaking identity abroad. Thank you.
One more, and please, I must ask you to be brief.
Я очень коротко. Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. I also have a comment. It's very short. I would like to thank the organizers for the working group for the organization of the conference and the discussion of the questions of Russian identity abroad. And I have a question regarding the comparative studies that were discussed here, and Russian speakers in Europe and Russian speakers in Finland. Yesterday we also discussed the thought about the Russian Jan Rihlainen told us about a place where we can have discussions, and I would like to find out if there was any research done regarding the percentage of activity and civil activity of the Russian speakers in the European countries compared to other minorities in Europe.
And now I would like to ask the panelists to answer your question and to comment on what you, I don't remember your name, I didn't hear it, said about the picture of Russian-speaking people as almost criminals. It was new to me. I haven't experienced that, but of course I haven't been in Finland for a while. So please, could you all five very shortly comment on these two things?
Yes, when it comes to the image of Russians or Russian-speaking in Finland, my experience is that it depends, for example, on media. If you look at the picture in media, for example, I have made some research on the image of Russia and Russians in business media, and there the picture is totally different from some other media. So we have to also remember that there is not like one picture of Russia or Russians presented in Finnish media. And when it comes to these comparative aspects, I think that this is also, there are quite good ideas for future research presented, and I hope that somebody will take them further, and maybe there could be a possibility at some point to create some kind of info bank for this kind of knowledge, or a digital platform where this kind of information could be shared.
Yeah, I can agree, Katja, about this issue that we really have. Depending on the media, we have different pictures in Finland about Russian minority, Russian speakers. We had actually a common research project with some other researchers about the picture of Russians, or we published a book about it as well. And it showed very clearly that it's very diverse. And so for that reason, I would say that what you told about what kind of feedback you get from Finland, it's only one small part of the picture. It is present here, but it's not at all the whole picture. And we have to understand that there are also both emotional and political reasons why someone do and what he is doing. And this leads me to, because I can't answer about this research, what you asked it. I think that Olga knows more about it, and probably maybe you can answer later. But I have to comment about this media influencing or media hybrid war question. I want to remind you that it was already 200 years ago when war theoretician Karl von Clausewitz from the Baltic, German, he said that the war is first of all not the clash of material, but the clash of minds. What we have now new is only this digital world and new equipments, how we influence the minds and how we wage a war against minds. But it's nothing new. Why we think that Napoleon was small, 150 centimeters tall, and keep hand this way, and our image is that he is the really bad guy, and we have this Napoleon complex saying and everything. It was the propaganda of that time of the enemies of friends, especially British media and British diplomats and commercial people who circulated that kind of idea that Napoleon is anti-Christ and anti-European, and for that, and that they had to characterize him as a really unpleasant person. And for that reason we have that false image. He was taller than normal average European man, 180 centimeters. And it was happy to keep hand this way at that time. There is nothing to do with this Napoleon complex and these things. So people conducted this information war already during that time. So we have to put also this burning situation to some context. That is what I want to say.
Yes, people have done. Even Roman Empire did very well. The other people were barbarians because they were saying that they were barbarians. So that's how we remember them. But we have lots of new equipment for that, so it's much more efficient. I don't know much about study. What was the other question? What I was listening to.
Picture of Russian speaking.
There is one thing. One part of this question is that medias are different. Russian media in Russia and Finnish media here in Finland. They are many ways different. Russian media is there's big. Their part of that is kind of way which gives positive feedback to be Russian, how Russia is, and so on. It's kind of a part of Russian media to be uplifting. But in Finland, we have in our media bad news are good news. So we like to tell when things default is that things work, and if things work, there's nothing there, nothing to see, no news. And then when something is not going well, then it's news. So it's not like there are no positive stories because there are not so much positive stories anyway, and about any group, not Russians, not others. Of course, there are positive stories too, but in a big picture, how the news are made, and that's one part of that it feels like, I understand it completely, that it feels like Finnish media it only speaks negatively about Russia and Russians, but that's not like it's the structure of journalism here, not any kind of Russophobia or anything like that.
Не знаю, мне кажется, в последнее...
I think that in recent times, Russian speakers, the image of Russian speakers in Finland has become better. Markov, Yeremenko, Shumov, all this team, we really appreciate them very much. And one girl, just we saw her in gymnastics, she was very talented, but of course we can see in Ilta Sanomat, in Ilta Lehti, very bad stories. For example, Alexei Yeremenko, if he didn't play well, then he is not considered to be a word which is called in Finnish like our so.
В 2000-х годах, еще в самом начале, изучали вопрос негативного представления, или представления, я имею в виду, статей о русскоязычном населении. И если в 1997 году в Хесаре могла выйти статья с заголовком «Ваша соседка Наташа вполне может оказаться приличной женщиной», то сегодня это просто невозможно. И мало того, если в начале 2000-х годов исследования были как раз об образе русскоязычного представителя русскоязычного населения Финляндии или эстоноязычного населения Финляндии и говорили об этом негативе, то сейчас, например, опять же сошлюсь оно произвело, видимо, на меня такое впечатление, русскоязычные в Финляндии, это исследование, которое называется, кстати, «Русскоязычные в Финляндии. Завтрашние финны», то там те же самые исследователи, которые раньше били тревогу о том, что слишком однобокий и негативный образ создается русскоязычного проживающего в Финляндии, то теперь забота исследователя, почему так мало русскоязычные говорят о себе в медиа, почему их мало используют как экспертов. Поэтому мне кажется, что это, в общем-то, вопрос к тому, насколько мы сами следим за финской прессой.
Now I thank you all, and please forgive me, we didn't stop at 4 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Спасибо.